quite confidently, my opinion is that within those 90 days, the state of actual emergency will be renewed for another 90 days. Don't see any, and please, anybody who sees this video, who sees a route where this doesn't happen and we go back to normal, please tell me, because I can't see it. But I think in 90 days, it will be extended at the end of this 90 days for another 90 days. Now, what that means, let's just put that in the context of this video. For the next 180 days potentially, but certainly the minimum 90 days, don't worry about your debts, don't worry about your rent or your mortgage, don't worry about your basic essentials. Everything is assured by your government. This is highly unprecedented. This is Corbyn plus policies. This is stuff that was ridiculed 3-4 months ago, but it's the only available response, and that's why it's being done. It's not being done because the government has come over all kind. It's the only thing they can do to reduce the number of lives that are going to be lost. It's also the only available option they have available to them. Same thing with the economy. The only thing they can do is pay everyone's wages, pay everybody's bills, because otherwise the economy collapses and there's nothing to go back to. And if the economy collapses, that will put a further load on an already stressed healthcare infrastructure. The number of bodies that would result from a massive economic downturn will be greater than those from the coronavirus pandemic. If we go back to the way we have been doing it. So the government wants to try to just keep everything going, keep everybody safe and safe at home where they are. It's much more of a public order thing than it is a benevolent thing, but they are paying everyone's wages. They're saying, don't worry about anything at all, just please stay at home. Let's get through the medical part of this.
What about the people that fall through the net?
The nets will be closed. Right now, there are no homeless people on the streets of London. Sorry, the entire UK, there are no homeless people because the government has found homes for them all. Obviously, a government that's trying to deal with everything far and wide has to, distinguish between people who are due some protection and those who aren't. But as far as the coronavirus is concerned, that applies to every single human body.
Refugees and everything.
If they're a human body and they're within the jurisdiction of the government, then the government will now take care of them, whatever. Because government policy, and this is how unusual, this is what people can't get their heads around. Governments are doing the right thing. The world is upside down. The government is doing the right thing because it has to do this, okay? So even if there's a refugee, doesn't matter where you came from, whether you're a right citizen or anything like that, if you're a human being in this country at this moment, the government will afford you the same rights that they'll afford anybody else who happen to be here because you're human. What they're going to do, only quarantine for those people who can prove they've got passports.
Well, who's got bank accounts and who hasn't got
Okay, well, so that's for the UBI, so that's for the administration of universal basic income, which is something that I've been talking about for a long time. It's an idea that's been around for a long time, and it's been on several manifestos, including one of the recent presidential candidates. And this is the idea where every citizen, and we're not talking about the emergency situation, obviously there is concern to human beings who don't have citizenship, so I'm not talking about the healthcare or the immediate program issue at the moment. I'm talking about what's been in place, and that is that in order to ensure the economy continues, the government will pump money from the magic money tree into citizens' accounts somehow, some way. In the United States, they've done it through direct deposit, as they have done in many other countries. In the UK, like other countries, they're currently doing it through a rather frictive method with lots of sort of impediments and obstacles, claiming benefits here, who qualifies for this, who doesn't, that kind of thing. 80% of 2,500. It's the first emergency response. Don't forget that government's very busy. Don't forget that we are having a bit of a leadership crisis in that we've got political parties that largely rose to power by being anti-establishment, anti-big government. So you've got a very small cut-down government that's been subject to austerity for 12 years anyway, so you can't really fault them at the moment if they're not getting every single thing right in the crisis.
Well, if people are hungry, they will fault that.
That's right, then they will. at this moment in time, the UK government has, or the Prime Minister has written to everybody to say, we guarantee you will not go hungry. Now, how that gets delivered, well, it's difficult circumstances at the moment, and we're making a lot of this up as we go along because it wasn't planned, remember. Nobody had any plan in place for what to do if this happened. That's something we can pour over later. Right now, we've just got to make sure that nobody does go hungry. So that means if there are gaps, we find out where they are, and we make sure that whoever needs to know that there's a gap there knows, and it will be closed. But it now won't be closed by government policy. It will be closed at the local delivery level. Does that make sense? Right, but it is going to take a bit of time to catch up because everyone's kind of busy. So anyway, the key thing being is that this is in place right now. For 90 days, we have this social safety foundation in place. And it is working economically because of the way that money works. And it can be sustained. And it should be sustained. I mean, I don't mean should from a moral perspective, or, oh, this is a really great thing, having everybody staying at home and doing whatever they want to do with their free time. It's a good thing that should be done because it's the only way of saving the economy. If we don't continue to do this and look for something else, we go back to a guaranteed depression. It will be the greatest depression, and it will make things very unpleasant for a long time, unnecessarily, just because of a political and economic choice that we make to go back to the way that we used to do it. So that means right at the end of 90 days or 180 days, governments turn around and say, right, everybody, all right, still dealing with the coronavirus and half of you don't have jobs. However, start paying your debts, start paying your rent, start paying your mortgages again, please. Don't expect these handouts anymore. That's all come to an end. It was just a short-term thing. We can't afford it. The truth is we can afford it. That is very well documented anywhere on the internet, and in this time that we have available to us, we should all be scouring the internet for the truth about money so that we can all understand it correctly and put that truth together and think, okay, now that we've got a better handle on how money works as opposed to currency, is this how we want it to work, or is there a different way of doing it? Right now, it seems to me that coronavirus has focused our attentions on what's really fundamentally important. And that's each other, and that's our lives, and that's helping each other. And that's such a great place to start. You prioritize the well-being of each other, the well-being of each other's lives as above everything else, above national defense, above the economy stupid, above all the other stuff we're used to thinking comes ahead of healthcare, and you make that the priority. And then everything else is pursuant to that. At the outer edge of your economy, obviously now there is this issue of the environment that I feel very strongly now will be benefit our attitude to the environment and how we can work together to overcome the coronavirus crisis will make us much more able to deal with the environmental crisis that we've had for a long time but have been paying as little attention to as the threat of pandemics, because it's all about figuring out how we cooperate competently, and actually money has got in the way of that. Money really is poison to cooperation, and it's, if you pardon the phrase, it's a cancer to everything else. Look at what it's done to our lives. So much debt is built up in the system since the economy was monetized or financialized in the 1980s that it now has signally failed to give a market-led response to the greatest crisis in human history. The idea that Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan came up with was that market forces could deliver public sector functions better than civil servants and the public sector itself. And so since the late 1980s, everything has been about, oh, get the markets involved, they're more efficient. Because they'll be chasing profit, they'll be looking for efficiency gains. What's actually happened, as we know with our experience with the trains and a lot of the other former publicly owned utilities, is that the process is invest as little as possible but extract as much profit as possible. So put as little in to get as much out as you can, and ask the people doing what they're doing to do more with less. and that's become ubiquitous. That's what our jobs have become. Particularly since 2008, it's been an unfought war. We've been in the trenches, constantly being asked to do more with less. Um, Meanwhile, we've been watching other sections of society um, where the greatest struggle they have is figuring out what to do with everything they've got. There's a race to become $1 trillion company, a race to become the first trillionaire. That's what seems important to them. Meanwhile, the rest of us, not so much fun. So we have an opportunity right now. Sorry, I was letting my colours show there. We've got an opportunity right now to experience what life can be like in a slightly different form of economy. This is happening all over the world. This isn't just me talking. I'm in touch with that. In the city of Amsterdam now, they're implementing this donut economy where the most important thing that you do before you even worry about money or luxuries is make sure that everyone is healthy and has everything they need to be a human being. That's the first thing that you do. And that's most important. And however, whatever it takes, that's what you do. Then at the outer ring, you have sustainability with the environment. How is this society going to interact and make sure that it is a net contributor to the benefit of the environment rather than something that is detrimental to the environment? And that's your goals. So your healthcare in the middle, or your welfare in the middle, and your environmental sustainability at the end. They're your two policy objectives, your two purposes, porpoises, and everything else goes on between it. In between it, whatever you want to do, however you want to run your economy, whatever you need to do, that takes place within that. So that's well worth looking up what the city of Amsterdam are doing. It shows you that this is all credible stuff. It all has ideas. You don't need a tinfoil hat to get your head around any of this. The idea that money in the modern economy is created by private banks issuing debts is not a fringe conspiracy idea. You can look it up on the Bank of England today, right now. Stop, pause the video, Google money creation in the modern economy, and take the first link that says the bankofengland.co.uk. That shows you how it all works. Most of us didn't know or care. The situation we're now in, that's been brought around by coronavirus, is a financial nuclear explosion has occurred. We're so busy dealing with the effects of the explosion that we're only now starting to realize that the fallout is coming. However, the changes that our government have made in response and emergency, because it was the only thing they could do, have actually shown us a way where we could reconfigure society and do things very differently, such as the Dutch people are doing in Amsterdam, and many other places doing lots of different things. So it's worthwhile we've got this time on our hands, not to sort of go too stir crazy and think, oh my God, 6 more months of this, and then it's back to the grind. Okay, the grind wasn't much fun for many of us. Most of us spent most of our time complaining about it. Right now, though, with coronavirus and everything being unusual, it's all we want to do is get back. How can we get back? When will they make us go back? Because that's our comfort, the comfort of the old routine. But we don't need to go back, and we can spend this time now talking about where else we might go to. And research, don't take anyone's word for it. Trust only what you can understand yourself. And there's so much of it out. Use this enforced holiday. Nature has given us a totally unexpected event. Hopefully, if everything goes well with the virus, we'll soon be moving more freely again. But I very much doubt we'll be going back to work for a while, if ever. Certainly not in what we understood to be work and where we need to go. But we do need to see there are alternative possibilities. It's been a terrible shock to everybody. We're finding our feet, finding our balance, getting over the days. There are better alternatives than going back, and we can all discover them and develop them together.